My son has never asked me for help. Not once in his 16 years of life. He is the kind of kid who figures things out on his own. When he was 7 and fell off his bike, he cleaned up his own bloody knee before I even knew it happened. When he struggled with math in middle school, he watched YouTube tutorials until he understood it instead of asking me for a tutor. He would rather struggle alone than admit he needs anyone. So when my phone buzzed at midnight with a text message from him in all caps, I knew something was terribly wrong. My name is Sienna Bardwell. I am 42 years old, and I have raised my son Hayden alone for the past 8 years. His father left when Hayden was 8, and it has been just the two of us ever since. We live in a small house in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio, the kind of place where nothing bad ever happens, the kind of place where you forget to lock your doors sometimes because you feel so safe. That night, I was asleep in my bedroom when my phone lit up on the nightstand. I almost ignored it. I thought it was spam or a late work email that could wait until morning, but something made me reach for it. Something made me look. The message was from Hayden, all capital letters. No punctuation except a period at the end. "Mom, please help. Call 911. I sat up so fast my head spun. My fingers were shaking as I typed back. "Hayden, what's wrong? Where are you?" His reply came 3 seconds later. Just 2 words that made my blood turn to ice. "In my closet." My son was hiding in his closet in the middle of the night, begging me to call for help, and his bedroom was only 30 feet away from mine. 5 minutes later, I heard screaming coming from his room, but the voice I heard was not my son. It was someone else, someone I had never heard before. If you are new here, take a second to subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. I read every single one. Now let me tell you how this nightmare began. I bought our house 8 years ago, right after the divorce was finalized. I needed a fresh start for me and Hayden. I needed a place that did not hold memories of his father in every corner. Troy had been gone for 2 months by then, chasing some woman he met at a work conference, leaving me with a confused 8-year-old and a stack of bills I did not know how to pay. The house was small, but perfect for us. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a little backyard with a fence. The neighborhood was full of older couples and young families. People waved when you drove past. They brought over cookies when you moved in. Our neighbor Darlene, a sweet widow in her late 60s, treated Hayden like her own grandson. She checked on us during storms and always had a plate of brownies ready when Hayden came home from school. It was safe here. At least, that is what I always believed. Hayden was a quiet kid even before his father left. But after Troy walked out, he retreated even further into himself. He stopped playing sports. He stopped having friends over. He spent most of his time in his room, playing video games with people he met online. I could hear him talking through his headset sometimes, laughing with strangers on the other side of a screen, and I told myself it was fine. At least he had someone to talk to, even if it was not me. We had a good relationship, Hayden and me, but it was built on silence more than words. I left his dinner in the microwave when I worked late. He texted me goodnight instead of coming to say it in person. We sat together on the couch sometimes and watched movies without talking, just being near each other. It was enough, or at least I thought it was. In the past year, I noticed him pulling away even more. He started locking his bedroom door, which he had never done before. He spent more hours online than ever. When I asked him if everything was okay at school, he just shrugged and said it was fine. When I asked if he wanted to talk about anything, he said there was nothing to talk about. I did not push. I told myself it was normal teenage behavior. I told myself he would come to me if something was really wrong. I was so focused on giving him space that I missed what was happening right in front of me. That night, the night everything changed, started like any other. I came home from work around 6, made pasta for dinner, and left a plate for Hayden in the microwave because he said he was not hungry yet. He was in his room with the door closed. I could hear the faint sound of his voice through the wall, talking to someone on his headset. I smiled a little. At least he was connecting with someone. I went to bed around 10 because I had an early meeting the next morning. I remember feeling peaceful as I drifted off to sleep. The house was quiet. My son was safe in his room. Everything was exactly as it should be. I woke up 2 hours later to a text message that would change our lives forever. The moment I saw those words on my screen, that peaceful life shattered. The safety I had built for my son and me turned out to be an illusion, because while I was sleeping, while I thought everything was fine, something terrible was unfolding just down the hall, and my son had been keeping a secret from me, a secret that was about to walk through our front door. I stared at those 2 words on my phone screen until they blurred. In my closet. My son was hiding in his closet in the middle of the night, and I did not even know why. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone. I typed back as fast as I could, asking what was happening, begging him to tell me more, but no reply came. The message just sat there, delivered, but unanswered. I called 911 before I even got out of bed. The dispatcher answered on the second ring, and I started whispering frantically into the phone. I told her my name and my address. I told her my 16-year-old son had just texted me saying someone was in the house. I told her he was hiding in his closet, and I was in my bedroom at the other end of the hall. The dispatcher's voice was calm and steady, the way they are trained to be, and she told me that officers were being sent to my location immediately. She told me to stay on the line and stay where I was. Stay where I was. Those words felt impossible. My son was 30 feet away, hiding in the dark, and she wanted me to stay in my bedroom and wait. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run to him, to break down his door and put myself between him and whatever was threatening him. But the dispatcher kept talking, kept telling me that confronting an intruder could make things worse, could put both of us in more danger. So I stood there in my bedroom doorway, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the silence of my own house and trying not to scream. The silence was the worst part. If there was someone in the house, why could I not hear them? There were no footsteps, no voices, no sounds of doors opening or closing, just nothing. Complete and total quiet. For a moment, I wondered if Hayden was playing some kind of terrible prank on me. Maybe he and his online friends had dared each other to scare their parents. Maybe this was all a joke, and in a few minutes, he would come out of his room laughing, and I would ground him for a month. But Hayden did not play pranks. He did not joke around like that. He was serious and careful, the kind of kid who thought through every action before he took it. If he sent me that message, he meant every word. I tried texting him again. Are you okay? Is someone in your room? Can you hear anything? The messages showed as delivered, but he did not respond. I pictured him crouched in his closet, phone clutched in his hands, too afraid to make a sound, too afraid to even type. That image made me want to throw up. Then I heard it. A scream, high-pitched and raw, coming from the direction of Hayden's room. My heart stopped. My whole body went rigid. But even as the terror washed over me, something in my brain registered that the voice did not sound like my son. It was higher, more desperate. It sounded like a girl. I told the dispatcher what I heard. My voice was shaking so badly the words came out in pieces. Someone is screaming in my son's room. I have to go to him. I cannot stay here. She kept telling me to wait, kept saying officers were almost there, but I was already moving. I could not stand in that doorway for one more second while my child was in danger. I grabbed the first thing I could find in the hallway closet. A baseball bat, the same one Hayden used back when he was 10 and still played Little League. It felt light in my hands, not nearly enough to protect us from whatever was happening, but it was something. It was better than nothing. I crept down the hallway with the phone still pressed to my ear. The dispatcher was talking, but I was not really listening anymore. All my focus was on Hayden's door at the end of the hall. It was closed. A thin line of light glowed underneath it from his desk lamp. The screaming had stopped. Now there was only silence again, thick and suffocating. I reached for the doorknob. My hand was shaking. I did not know what I would find on the other side, but I was his mother, and nothing in this world was going to stop me from getting to my son. I pushed the door open and raised the bat above my shoulder, ready to swing at whoever was threatening my son. My heart was pounding so hard, I could feel it in my ears. Every muscle in my body was tight, prepared for a fight. But what I found on the other side of that door was nothing like what I expected. Hayden was standing in the middle of his room. He was not hurt. He was not tied up or held at gunpoint. He was just standing there, looking at me with an expression I had never seen on his face before. It was fear mixed with something else, something like guilt. His headset was on the floor. His computer monitor glowed on the desk behind him, showing some kind of chat window. And sitting on his bed, shaking and crying, was a girl I had never seen in my life. She looked about Hayden's age, maybe a little younger, 15 at most. She had long brown hair that was tangled and messy, like she had been running. She was wearing pajama pants and an oversized hoodie that swallowed her thin frame. Her face was streaked with tears, and her eyes were red and swollen from crying. But what made my stomach drop were the marks on her wrists, red welts circling both arms, like something had been tied around them, like someone had bound her. I lowered the bat slowly, trying to understand what I was looking at. The dispatcher was still talking in my ear, asking what was happening, telling me officers were 2 minutes away. I could barely process her words. All I could do was stare at this stranger sitting on my son's bed in the middle of the night. Hayden spoke before I could ask any questions. His voice was rushed and panicked, words tumbling out faster than I had ever heard him speak. "Mom, this is Becca. I met her online 6 months ago. She lives in Indiana, about 3 states away. Her stepdad has been hurting her for years, hitting her, locking her in rooms. Tonight, he went too far, and she finally ran. She took a bus here because she did not have anywhere else to go. I gave her our address, Mom. I told her she could come here and be safe." I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. My brain was trying to catch up with what my son was telling me. He had been talking to this girl for 6 months. He had given a stranger our home address. She had traveled across 3 states to escape an abusive stepfather and was now sitting in my house. "Hayden," I finally managed to say, "why did you not tell me any of this? I was going to tell you in the morning. I was going to explain everything, but then she messaged me saying someone was following her. A car had been behind the bus since she left her town. She thought she lost them when she got off at the station. But Mom, she did not lose them." The girl on the bed, Becca, looked up at me with terrified eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper when she spoke. "He found me. My stepdad. He followed me all the way here. I saw his truck parked down the street when I came in. I am so sorry. I did not mean to bring him here. I did not know he would follow me." Before I could respond, before I could even begin to process what she was saying, we all heard it. A loud crash from the back of the house, the sound of glass shattering and something heavy hitting the floor. Someone was breaking in through the back door. Becca screamed, the same scream I had heard from my bedroom. Hayden grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the closet. I moved on instinct, pushing both of them inside and closing the door behind us. The 3 of us crouched in the darkness between hanging clothes and old shoeboxes, barely breathing. Heavy footsteps echoed through the house. Someone was inside, and I could hear a man's voice, slurred and angry, calling out her name. "Becca, I know you are in here. You cannot run from me." The closet was dark and cramped. I could feel Hayden pressed against my left side and Becca trembling against my right. The girl was shaking so hard I could feel it through my own body. She had her hand clamped over her mouth to keep from making any sound. Tears were streaming down her face. I put my arm around her and held her tight, the way I would hold my own child. The dispatcher was still on the line. I had almost forgotten about the phone clutched in my hand. I brought it close to my mouth and whispered as quietly as I could, "He is inside the house. The man who was following the girl. He broke in through the back. Please tell them to hurry." The dispatcher's voice came back steady and calm. "Officers are 1 minute out, ma'am. Stay hidden. Do not confront him. Help is almost there." 1 minute, 60 seconds. It felt like a lifetime. The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear him moving through the house, heavy boots on the kitchen tile, then onto the hallway carpet. He was not trying to be quiet. He did not care if we heard him coming. He was drunk and furious and convinced he had every right to be here. "Becca," his voice echoed through the walls. "You think you can run away from me? You think some little boyfriend on the internet is going to save you? I drove 8 hours to find you. 8 hours. And you think you can hide from me in some stranger's house?" Becca whimpered beside me. Hayden reached over and took her hand, squeezing it tight. In the darkness of that closet, I saw my son differently than I ever had before. He was not the quiet, withdrawn teenager I worried about. He was brave. He was protective. He had put himself in danger to save someone who had no one else. The man was in the hallway now. I could hear him opening doors, slamming them shut when he found empty rooms. The bathroom door crashed against the wall. The spare bedroom door banged open. He was getting closer with every second. "Come out, Becca. You are only making this worse for yourself. When I find you, and I will find you, you are going to wish you never ran." I tightened my grip on the baseball bat. If he opened this closet door, I was going to swing with everything I had. I did not care how big he was. I did not care if he was stronger than me. I would fight until my last breath to protect these children. The bedroom door crashed open. The sound was so loud and so close that all three of us flinched. I could hear him breathing now, heavy and ragged, just a few feet away on the other side of the closet door. I could hear him tearing the room apart, the mattress flipping over, the desk chair slamming against the wall, books and games crashing to the floor. Then silence. I held my breath. Becca stopped shaking. Even Hayden went completely still. We all knew what was coming. He had found the closet. I saw the shadows shift under the door. I saw his boots stop right in front of us. I raised the bat, ready to strike the moment that door opened. And then the sirens came. Red and blue lights flashed through the bedroom window, painting the walls in spinning colors. The man cursed loudly. I heard his boots turn and stomp away, heading back down the hallway toward the front of the house. "Police! Open the door! Come out with your hands up!" There was shouting and crashing from the living room. I heard the front door burst open. I heard officers yelling commands. I heard the heavy thud of a body hitting the floor and the click of handcuffs locking into place. Then an officer's voice called out, "Clear! The house is secure. Ma'am, are you and the children safe?" I pushed open the closet door with shaking hands. Hayden helped Becca to her feet. We walked out of that closet together, stepping over the destruction the man had left behind. My son's room looked like a tornado had hit it, but we were alive. All three of us were alive. In the living room, I saw him for the first time. Becca's stepfather, a large man with a red face and wild eyes, now pinned to the floor in handcuffs. He was still yelling, still cursing, still threatening what he would do when he got free. But he was not going to get free. Not tonight, not ever again. The paramedics arrived 10 minutes after the police. They checked all three of us for injuries, but Becca was their main concern. When they gently pushed up her sleeves and lifted the back of her hoodie, I had to look away. The marks on her wrists were just the beginning. Her arms were covered in bruises, some fresh and purple, others faded to yellow and green. Her back had scars that looked years old. This girl had been suffering for a long time, and no one had helped her until my son reached out through a screen. Her stepfather's name was Vince Kelly. He was 43 years old and had a history of domestic violence charges that never seemed to stick. Becca's mother had been too afraid of him to ever testify. The neighbors had heard screaming but never called the police. Teachers had seen the bruises but accepted the excuses. Everyone had looked the other way. Everyone except a 16-year-old boy in Ohio who played video games with her and actually listened when she talked. Vince was arrested that night and charged with stalking, breaking and entering, criminal trespassing, and multiple counts of child abuse. The evidence on Becca's body was impossible to ignore. He was denied bail and taken to county jail to await trial. I watched them put him in the back of the police car, still shouting threats, still insisting he had done nothing wrong. The officer closed the door and cut off his voice, and for the first time that night, I felt like I could breathe. Child Protective Services arrived before sunrise. They took Becca to the hospital for a full evaluation and to document her injuries. I held her hand before they took her away and told her she was safe now. She looked at me with those red, swollen eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Then she looked at Hayden and said something I will never forget. "You saved my life. You are the only person who ever believed me." Hayden did not say anything. He just nodded, his jaw tight, his eyes wet. That was the moment I truly understood who my son was. Not the quiet kid who locked himself in his room. Not the withdrawn teenager who never talked to me. He was someone who saw pain in another person and refused to ignore it. He was someone who opened his door to a stranger because she had nowhere else to go. In the days that followed, I learned the full story. Hayden and Becca had met in an online gaming community 6 months earlier. They started as teammates, then became friends, then became each other's safe space. Becca told Hayden things she had never told anyone: the abuse at home, the fear that no one would believe her, the feeling that she was completely alone in the world. Hayden listened. He believed her, and when she finally found the courage to run, he gave her the only place he could offer: our home. I was angry at first. My son had hidden something this serious from me. He had invited a stranger into our house without telling me. He had put himself and all of us in danger. But as the anger faded, something else took its place: pride. My son had done something most adults would never do. He had taken a risk to save someone who was drowning. Becca's mother finally left Vince after his arrest. She filed for divorce and testified against him in court. Becca was placed with her aunt in Michigan, where she started therapy and began the long process of healing. She and Hayden still talk every day. They play games together online. They send each other memes and songs and stupid videos that make them laugh. He is her best friend, and she is his. Vince Kelly was convicted on all charges. He received 12 years in prison with no possibility of early parole. He will never hurt Becca again. Hayden and I are closer now than we have ever been. We still do not talk much. That is just who we are. But the silence between us feels different. It feels full instead of empty. I know who he is now. I know what he is capable of, and I have never been more proud to be his mother. If you are still watching, please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation. I read every single one, and I love hearing from you. My son texted me at midnight asking for help. I thought he was the one in danger. I thought I needed to save him. But the truth is, he was never the victim that night. He was the hero. He saw a girl with no one left to turn to, and he said, "Come here, you will be safe with me." And when the monster followed her to our door, my son stood between them without hesitation. I used to worry that Hayden was too quiet, too closed off, too reluctant to let anyone in. But now I understand. He was not closed off. He was just waiting for someone who truly needed him, someone worth opening his heart for. Some people say teenagers do not understand consequences. They say young people are reckless and selfish and do not think about anyone but themselves. But my son understood something that most adults forget. When someone is drowning, you do not wait for permission to save them. You do not ask if it is safe. You do not wonder if it is your responsibility. You just reach out your hand and pull them to shore. That is what Hayden did. And because of him, Becca is alive today.